Welcome to Ordinary Teachers and Students. These bonus episodes, 1, 2, 3, 4 teachers, are concepts or ideas, mostly from psychology, that I feel will benefit teachers. Rather than giving you a 90-minute lecture about them, I thought a bite-sized episode like this would be more suited for busy teachers like you. My name is Alan Cheng, and I'm a life coach and university lecturer. My vision is to make life coaching a part of every school. Right, as part of the follow-up to the last episode about building habits, this episode is about eating well. A word of warning first, this podcast is simply one where I share my opinions on how I try to eat well, and it's not meant to replace professional advice from a nutritionist or a doctor. So the one concept for today is eating well. And the two things I want to share about my own views of eating well. The first one would be maybe to tell you a bit more about what my diet was like before. So when I was younger, I guess I had the typical teenager's diet, maybe even worse because actually my parents had a Chinese takeaway. I often had chips for lunch, so that'll be French fries, depending on when you're listening to this podcast from. And I even for a time, because I wanted to play football, I sometimes only had a Mars bar or a Kit Kat as my lunch. And I had fizzy drinks pretty much every day because my parents had a Chinese takeaway and there was a massive fridge full of fizzy drinks. So I could take my pick basically. And I probably had they probably didn't just have one. I'm pretty sure I had more than one per day. After I came home from school, my typical tea or quick snack would be crisps with chocolate. So I loved Lion bars and Kit Kats. And dinner, it would kind of depend on whether my mum was cooking at home or not, but often it was Chinese takeaway food, which obviously is not the healthiest in the world. So that probably consisted of like fried rice, crispy duck, and all those kind of things, sweet and sour pork and stuff like that. And so just thinking about my own diet makes me kind of cringe. It was really pretty bad. I guess because I didn't know better. No one really talked to me about my diet, and no one really guided me too much. I mean, I think it got better, much better towards I guess when I was about 16, 17-ish, because my parents had their own health issues. So my mum had high cholesterol and my dad had I think some issues with his blood pressure. So we started as a family becoming more health conscious. And so I think that kind of helped. And so as an adult, I would say before I made some recent changes, I ate reasonably healthily. I guess the good things I did was that I drank quite a lot of water. So I no longer drank fizzy drinks, pretty much not at all, unless I was forced to have some kind of lunch at a fast food restaurant. So yeah, lots of water. And I had a way to choose my lunch or dinner, which was generally to go for the least unhealthy option. So I'll just repeat that one more time, the least unhealthy option. So I'll be looking at the menu and thinking, oh, okay, what do I want that is probably not as unhealthy? And so I'll go for the least unhealthy one. And so that was kind of the good stuff. But I guess there was still quite a lot of bad stuff. I mean, when I was teaching in Hong Kong, I would eat out quite a lot, particularly for lunch. And my typical lunch normally consisted of very few vegetables and a lot of meat. So I'm quite a meat lover. So it might be something like a sweet and sour pork with rice for lunch, which sounds great, actually. I love sweet and sour pork, but clearly not the healthiest. And I also really like deep fried food. So things like, I don't know, maybe a Japanese curry with deep fried chicken or pork. I ate that quite a lot just a few years ago, really. And so what's changed? So that's my second point, really, would be that I've read a lot more about research on diet, nutrition, and particularly on gut health. And the more I read about it, the more I see how it's actually really important. It's almost like a second brain. So our gut health is linked to our emotions. And the thing that really got me to pay attention to my diet was reading about the connection between our gut and our brain. So a simple question is like that I ask myself is, do I really want to be destroying my brain because of my diet? And so moving on to three things that I've changed recently. So it has been actually really recent. So it's only been the turn of the year, I would say, where I really made an effort to do something about my diet. And so I followed Tim Spector's work. So he's a doctor and he does work with an organization called Zoe. So ZOE. I'll include links to these in the show notes. I highly recommend listening to their podcasts and reading their articles because obviously they are much more knowledgeable than I am in this area. And so I read a lot of that work, and then so I made some changes, and the following were three of them that I think were pretty big changes, yet small enough for anyone to be able to do it. So you heard my diet before, right? So the first thing was to aim to eat 30 types of fruit and veg. So one very important thing is the variety, because I've learned that each type of fruit or veg actually offers something different in terms of microbiomes in our gut health. And so it's not about eating only one particular like super fruit or super veg, but it's about eating a variety of them. The one way I try to do this is actually through nuts and seeds. So, as an example, in the morning, I would have like oatmeal or like kind of porridge type of thing. And in the oatmeal, I get to add lots of different types of seeds. So I add chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, black sesame seeds, and sometimes I throw in a banana into that as well. I mean, it's not the most tasty porridge or breakfast in the world. I mean, but it's not bad. But I at least I feel it's super healthy, and I get in like 3 to 4 types of fruit or veg already in there. The other option or the other way I get in more seeds or nuts is actually by eating a salad for lunch. So normally I might eat something else plus a salad because I'm still a meat lover and I don't feel full after just eating a salad. And so alongside whatever might be eating, so it could be a sandwich plus a salad, could be a wrap plus a salad. But in the salad, that's where I can add in walnuts and unroasted and unsalted cashew nuts, for example. And so within a day, I can already get like 10 different types of nuts and seeds into my meal. And so that's the first thing, like trying to aim to eat 30 types of fruit and veg. I'm actually a big lover of fruits, so that helps a lot. So I eat pretty much every type of fruit that is available. I guess my former colleagues would know me quite well that I actually before I always ate an apple either at lunch or after school. So um, yeah, and recently I've been counting with my daughter how many types of fruit and veg we have in our meals per week, and we're sometimes actually we're quite close to 30. We might not always get 30, so it could be 20 something depending on really my wife what she cooks for dinner. Um, but yeah, it's something to aim for. The second thing that I've done is actually a small change, but it's eating kimchi every night with dinner. And so if I explain this a little bit more, so basically, um, I've read that there are 4Ks. So this is from Tim Spector that I mentioned before. 4Ks, kefir, kombucha, kimchi, and sauerkraut, the K in the middle, that are meant to be super healthy for us because these are like fermented types of food, and they're meant to be really good for our gut health. And so out of the four, I felt kimchi seemed the most accessible to me because I've had that quite often before. I wouldn't say often, but every time I went to a Korean restaurant, there'd be like a little small plate of kimchi there. And so that's what I tried to do. I'm not a big fan of kimchi, but I didn't hate it. So And it's quite easy because you can just eat it cold, like a starter. And so yeah, basically every evening I would take a couple of spoonfuls of kimchi from like a jar of kimchi that we have, and just eat it alongside whatever I'm having for dinner. So just a simple way to add again to the variety of fruit and veg that I'm having. The third thing that I've changed recently has been having a longer gap between my last meal and my first meal. So this is to allow the digestive system time to rest. And so we generally finish our last meal by 7-ish, and then we have breakfast around 7-ish as well. So there's about 12 hours there. Scientists generally recommend fasting to be like, so it's sometimes called intermittent fasting, but I don't do it intermittently because I do it every day, or we do it every day. But they recommend 12 to 16 hours. And it's actually a really simple way to improve your gut health without changing your diet. So that's why I did it. And so those are the 3 ways that I've changed my diet or the way I approach eating in the past few months. And it's really made a big difference. So I do feel the changes happening. And yeah, so just to finish off, 4 takeaways would be: 1, I try to look for whole foods and avoid the ultra processed ones where possible. Not always possible, but it's just one way that I approach it. The second thing would be that things that label themselves as low fat, extra healthy, so all those big labels or stickers, rarely are healthy. So if you think about apples or vegetables, they don't ever have a label saying that they're healthy, really. So that's another thing that I try to pay attention to, and not to fall for these traps that certain companies might be doing in order to get us to buy their food, thinking that we're doing something healthy for our bodies. The third thing would be habit building. So we talked about this last time. A simple thing to help yourself is actually think about what's visible on the tabletop and what's easily accessible. So I think I mentioned this in the last episode. And the way to think about it is, like, when you're hungry, you go to the kitchen, what's the first thing you see? So if it's a bag of crisps or some chocolate, that's going to be the first thing that you eat. And so that's something maybe you can have a think about to help yourself to change your habits if you want to. And the final takeaway that I hope you can get from this episode is simply having a why for eating healthily. So have a think about why you might want to do this. So for me, my why was to protect my brain, basically. And so I would say I'm not urging you to change. I'm not recommending that you must take on all these changes that I've mentioned in my podcast episode. But whatever changes that you make, I think you should be comfortable with them. You don't want to be starving yourself of certain types of food, or like not allowing yourself to eat your favorite things, particularly when you're out on social occasions, right? And so that's why I'm quite skeptical about certain diets that are pushed around. I allow myself to have the occasional chocolate bar, like crisps, but I don't crave them, and I don't see them as part of my daily diet. And so I would say I feel like I have control over them. So I'll leave you with just a simple question of: what's one small thing you think you can add or take away from your diet to make it just a little bit healthier? I hope you enjoyed this episode, and hope you join us again next time on Ordinary Teachers and Students.